let's break down rest first. I think rest should be the most simple to kind of talk about. Um, a lot of folks take rest to mean many different things. I think, but the really smart folks and the folks I've tried to learn from and model my training after, rest really just means an absence of training at its most simple form. It's not recovery runs, it's not easier days, it's just simply rest. And I think it can take a couple different forms, but none of them involve activity. I think that's one of the biggest traps, is that we'll do active rest or something like that. Rest is rest. It's when you need to shut everything down. In that kind of perspective, I think it's not as common as recovery and easy days if your training structured correct and you're not having injuries. But it should be part of it, right? It's definitely an essential thing. Because rest by nature means an absence, it's actually kind of tough to get right, I think, when you're living a busy life and you're not a professional athlete. You have other responsibilities, obligations, maybe family, work, those different things that take our time. It's hard to actually get true rest sometimes, even if we take a break from running. So, I think it's why we have to be really intentional when we talk about rest, or when we plan out rest, rather. We have to really prioritize it. One of the reasons I think rest is so important to structure in and to be intentional with is because, in my experience and in the experience I've seen other folks have, when we don't choose to do that, it chooses it for us. And what I mean is, our body demands rest. It's not a luxury or a privilege to structure it in. It's oh man, I need to lay down all day type of response that is reflected on the built-up fatigue and stress of training, life, and the other things I mentioned. So, I definitely encourage anybody who's on the fence on getting the appropriate rest, just hop off that fence, hop right in. There's few times we can over rest. I think especially for those of us who are pretty focused on our training and really into the sport or whatever sport we're chasing, get that rest. Try and get the mental rest too, if possible, with life's demands, but definitely prioritize it. Practice number 2, recovery. Recovery is a lot more nuanced than rest, and I won't claim to be an expert on all the different ways. I don't have my Normatec boots or anything like that. Those things are probably great, but I can only speak from my own experience. So for me, recovery days tend to involve a run still. I'm definitely on the higher end of the spectrum for running volume, I think, compared to the average person. And that's okay. My body handles it pretty well. So for me, a recovery day will often involve, a half-hour run or something like that. My wife likes to rock climb, so I'll go with her sometimes, do some bouldering. Certainly not at a hard effort, because I'm not good enough to do that, frankly. But stuff like that, downhill skiing, where I'm getting a little muscular fatigue, but I'm riding the chairlift. I'm really prioritizing aerobic recovery when I talk about recovery. So like I said, there's a lot of different ways to do it. There's a lot of different nuance there. But the key thing to me is to keep the body limber and moving. Maybe it's some stretching, some yoga, without really taking it to the level of a full zero, a full rest type of day. A little mental stress is maybe okay when we're talking about some of the things, like some of the activities I mentioned. But to me, the recovery here is more of an active. It's not a completely passive recovery, which is what I would call a rest day. So practice number 3, easy days. Easy days, to me, are really easy to explain, no pun intended, because easy days should be the majority of your actual running volume. So when I talk about easy days, I'm talking about active running days that are not workout or long run days, essentially. For a lot of folks, they use the 80-20 rule. So 80% of your mileage is easy, 20% can be, some level of hard. I think some of us are on a scale. It depends on where you're at with your training. But yeah, certainly the vast majority should be what I would call easy. The real easy description for this, I keep saying easy a lot on this part. the real way to describe an easy day is a run that's conversational pace. So yeah, conversational pace run is kind of the gold standard, I think, for most folks. I'm out on a run sometimes by myself, and I feel like at this point of 10 plus years of training pretty hard, I have a good gauge for what my effort is. There are still times when I'll maybe say a sentence out loud and get some weird looks from strangers, depending on who's around, because that to me is kind of my way of still measuring if it's actually an easy effort. So yeah, go ahead and steal that if you want to look crazy. But yeah, I'll kind of talk to myself and just see, hey, can I truly get out this whole sentence, especially on hilly runs where I'm going uphill and my tendency is to kind of lean in and hammer up the hill. So, just keep it genuinely easy is the key, whether it's, that conversational pace kind of trigger that you want to use, or it's some other metric for gauging your own effort. Some folks have accurate heart rate. I have a wrist based on my watch, which is not accurate, but if you have heart rate and you want to use that and you can kind of gauge your easy effort, I would say for myself, an easy day heart rate would probably be anywhere from 100 to 130 beats per minute. If that requires going 9-10 minute per mile pace, then that's what I have to do. I mean, that's really easy days have to be prioritized, kind of like rest days where it's built into the program, it's structured. You have to think of it, honestly, more importantly than the workout days. So to kind of wrap up the easy day kind of portion here, the way I like to think about the easy days in the structure of my full training program is that's the time, those are the days, those are the runs that I'm actually absorbing the workouts. That might not be the correct scientific way to describe it, but that's kind of how I think about it. So, you really want to get those good workouts in. And then if you want your body to adapt to those workouts, you do a bunch of easy days in succession afterwards. Sometimes that's 2 for me, 3 or 4, depending on how hard I went. But really, those are the days when your muscles are adapting. You're continuing the movement, you're continuing the recovery, but you're also continuing the running to kind of help your body work through whatever you just put it through in the last workout, long run or whatnot. So, really build it in, be intentional, just like with all 3 of these practices. But yeah, honestly, easy days are what make or break a training program. So you really cannot prioritize them enough. Okay, so to wrap up these 3 practices, easy days, essential. That should be the majority of your training. That should be the time when you adapt and recover from those, those hard sessions. Just think of it as 80%, if that rule works for you, 80% of your total running should be easy. Recovery days can involve a run, but really the focus here is not easy running. It's more one step further where you're really focusing on recovering. Sometimes I'll start my week with a Monday recovery day, right? I really, in my mind, think the run is not super important. If I can get a run in and still recover, I will. Sometimes I can't even get in a run because I really need extra recovery, which brings us to number 3, which we started with here, which is the rest days. That's when you need the full 0. Try to take a rest. If you can schedule one on a day off from work where you have no work stress, limit your other stresses in life, really just fully focus on rest. Lots of times after a race, I'll try and take 3 to 5 to even a full week of just solid rest days. At the end of that stretch, I might start getting more into the recovery where I might have an easy run, but really when it's a single rest day that you're just building into a training program, or a couple rest days, just rest, It should be simple, but somehow it's not for most of us. So yeah, I hope this all helps. I hope somebody can get better by remembering these practices. So yeah, best of luck. Forgot to say, somewhere I'll share either on the screen somewhere or down below I'll have a link to the last couple weeks of my training calendar on Strava. I think it's really perfect example, and the reason I made this video right now, a few weeks ago I stacked way too much volume and way too much hard efforts into a full 5-day work week while I was on a work trip, so there was just stress from every angle, and yeah, it was followed by a forced couple recovery days, which turned into a full rest day, which have now been followed by probably my best 2 weeks of training of the year. So yeah, kind of some proof in the pudding. So yeah, I'll make sure to share that somewhere too.